Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode on the Truth That Heals podcast. I am your host, Ryan Anthony Hernandez, and today we are here with Indhushree Rajan. Indhushree, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, and I'm happy to be here. It's exciting to see the work that you're doing and to be able to help perhaps in some way today. So happy to be here.
Now, to get started, very simple questions. If you can introduce yourself and introduce to the audience what it is that you do.
Absolutely. Well, I'm a clinical psychologist, and I'm also a life coach, relationship coach. And what I help people do is to transform their wounding, their pain, their trauma, to transmute it into a way that they can know more about themselves, understand what happened, and move forward to live a much better, happier version of themselves and to really be the best that they can be in this life. That's really what I'm passionate about, is to help people transform, to help people find joy and hope again, and to really look forward in life rather than constantly looking back.
When would you say that you discovered that you had a passion to helping people, and when did that evolve into you becoming a clinical psychologist?
So my younger sister, she passed away in 2019, but she was my very favorite person in my life. I still miss her so much. She had muscular dystrophy and cerebral palsy, and she had a lot of other ailments too. And it was just the two of us growing up together. So I grew up as one of her primary caregivers, along with my parents. And so I learned very early in life, the importance of looking out for others who are hurting, the importance of being aware of what people are going through around you. And in our home, there was a lot of crisis because of her issues. So, in a weird way, trauma and crisis became a normal part of life for me. I think whatever our home environments are like, we kind of adapt, as human beings. Our biology is very adaptive. So even if we're in bad circumstances, we learn how to deal with them and survive. And then later in life, I too went through a lot of trauma. So I'm a trauma survivor. I've been through various kinds of trauma, including breast cancer and including, physical and sexual abuse and various things like that. So my own healing journey took me through therapy. It took me through a self-actualization process where I had to really face what I have gone through. And I've really had to come to terms with the fact that even though all of these things happened to me, my spirit, my soul, my mind, the greater sum of who I am is much greater than what happens to me. And that the joy of discovering that, the freedom that I have experienced, as a result of that, really led me to serve others. And so, throughout my life, I have been working in the nonprofit sector in various ways. I have worked with at-risk students in group homes and in juvenile hall, and that time in my life led me to psychology, because I was part of treatment teams for students. I did a lot of, nonprofit work with the homeless, with gang members, with rape survivors, that kind of thing. And then I went back to school and I got my doctorate and I started doing therapy work, which I believe is really, I kind of feel like I found what I'm meant to do in this life. So I really enjoy working with people, helping people heal in therapy, also helping people really move forward in life towards realizing their goals and ambitions through coaching, and really, discovering the very best version of who they are. And I also have a nonprofit called Project Satori. A lot of the trauma work that I've done, a lot of the trauma that I've experienced, it led me to a path where I work with human trafficking survivors. So I've done a lot of work with human trafficking survivors clinically and also in research and advocacy, um, for the last nearly 17 years in Calcutta in India and also in Los Angeles. And I'm actually gearing up to do treatment research soon with survivors. I'm hoping to start pursuing that within the next year. So I'm excited about that. I'm working on a treatment protocol that I'm hoping will really help bring healing to people who have struggled through that life, through being trafficked. So,
Well, thank you for sharing what it is that you do, who you are, and the amazing work that you do. I kind of wanted to go back, and you were mentioning how, unfortunately, you've also been through traumatic experiences. But there's something that really caught my attention when I don't remember exactly how you said it, but it was like you face the issues that you were going through, you came to terms with them, and after that, it resulted you in you finding your higher self and you going forward in life. Um, how harmful would you say is it when people don't come to terms with the events that are happening in their lives and just bury it, adapt to their surroundings, and don't change?
that's a great question, and it's a very critical question. Well, the thing about our biology, as I mentioned, is that we're designed to survive. We're also designed to heal. And what I mean by that is, if you think about, I'm sure everybody has an example of this, but I'm going to use an extreme example. If you're caught in a certain dynamic, like for example, if you're in an abusive relationship, um, you, however that ends, it ends, you move on, you date again, and you end up in another abusive relationship. That's not by accident, because what ends up happening is whatever we are not consciously working on, whatever we have put to the side and decided, nope, not going there, not doing it, I don't want to think about it, I'm not dealing with it, I'm just going to let it go. You're not letting it go by not dealing with it. Um, because emotions are cumulative, and the patterns that have become familiar to us, that we have lived out, they will continue to play out in the choices that we make, because our brain, our mind, and also our body, our spirit wants us to heal. So in a way, at an unconscious level, the unconscious mind, okay, is dealing with all of these patterns, is dealing with all of these past wounds and past traumas. And that informs the choices that we make, whether we're aware of it or not. So if you let your unconscious, the material in your unconscious drive your life, you're going to be repeating the same mistakes over and over again. You're going to be repeating the same relational patterns over and over again. You're going to be making the choices that you later regret over and over again. Um, because the intent really, because of how we're wired, it's really meant to get you to say, oh, wait a minute, I've been here before. I don't want to do that again. I don't want to date that kind of guy again. I don't want to be in this sort of job again. Whatever it is, however that wounding shows up, it'll show up, and it's going to pursue you, right? So as difficult as it seems, what therapy does and what coaching does is that you get to be in a space where on your terms, in your pace, at your pace, and in your language and your energy, you have support as you face your wounding, as you face your past traumas, and as you work through it, you come out on the other side, and then you genuinely are able to let it go, so that you're not living in a very limited, repetitive, reactive way, but rather you are really living in power. You get your power back. We give away our power when we don't deal with the things that happen to us, because every time we go through something and we decide, nope, I can't look at it, don't want to deal with it, don't want to, no, 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 or I'm going to have a drink, or I'm going to smoke weed, or I'm going to do whatever it is I'm going to do to make sure that I can't feel it, it just gets driven down deeper. And over time, you start to lose parts of yourself. You start to lose a sense of integration. I believe all of this work is about integration, about taking all the stuff that we've exiled, looking at it, learning from it, and allowing it to make us whole again.
I really love what you said about how our bodies and our souls, it's designed to reach towards healing. But unfortunately, sometimes we have a mindset, including myself, I'm saying we, including myself, where a mindset can be pulling me down or pulling me towards a more comfortable environment, which can be a toxic environment. But because I'm used to it, it feels right. It feels in its odd way a bit comfortable. Yet at the same time, there is a I don't know if it's conscience or what it is, but there's something telling me that something's not right here, that I need to get out, but I'm stuck mentally. How does a coach or a psychologist help a client to untangle those thoughts and to start seeing towards a different direction in life?
Well, I tell you, I tell all of my clients that to create meaningful change in life, you need you need to have honesty, you need to have awareness, consistency, and commitment. These are the things that create meaningful change. So even if you don't want to go to a coaching session or therapy session or whatever, you show up with what you have, you commit to the process. Um, you've got to be willing to be honest with yourself and honest with your therapist or your coach about what is going on for you, where you're struggling, what has been, coming up, even if it brings up shame, even if it brings up sadness, even if it brings up anger. We are afraid oftentimes of the emotional plane. We are afraid. I kind of liken it to body surfing in the ocean. For those of you who haven't body surfed, or maybe you've surfed, if you look at kind of the movement of the waves, oftentimes the water will rush in and you'll see this for there's a split second where it looks like, oh my God, this wave is going to be enormous. It's going to wipe me out. And most often it does this and the water just goes right down, right? I think that oftentimes that's what dealing with emotions is like. We have all of this anticipatory anxiety about emotion, like, oh my God, it's going to be heavy. I'm not going to be able to function. I've got too much work to do. My kids have to make it to school. I have kids. I can't deal with this. I have too much going on. And so we choose to stay in survival mode. Survival mode is got to pay the bills, got to get to work, got to take care of the kids. You're stuck in all of the have to do's in life, right? And oftentimes in survival mode, we don't recognize who we are authentically. We hide within roles that we have to fulfill. We work until 12, 1, 2 in the morning because work becomes an escape. We oftentimes can, people get into affairs or people get into other ways of coping, like drinking or drugs or whatever, because we just don't want to face it. We just, two things, we don't want to face it, and we also have to do these things in our lives, right? But what therapy and coaching does, therapy helps you to really face what's happened to you and integrate what has happened to you into who you are in a positive way. Anything that has happened to you does not have the power to minimize who you are as a person, who you are as a soul. Nothing can minimize that. But if we stay in a mindset of fear, if we stay in a mindset of dread or of disbelief or of whatever it is that is coloring your lens, then we are robbing ourselves of the opportunity to really change what we're holding, to transmute that energy into something very positive. Because even though trauma brings heartache, brings devastation sometimes, can really devastate the psyche, can really bring a lot of non-functionality. You find yourself in very, very dark places. Um, if we can hold and contain and really work through that trauma, then on the other side of it, you become very resilient and very strong. And you even become able to understand your life narrative in such a way that what was tormenting you before has actually yielded a blessing for you. I used to hate myself and think that I was worthless and that my life was worthless. When I went through at the apex of my pain, when I had gone through all of this trauma, I couldn't bear to look at myself in the mirror. Um, but slowly, as I started to um, be guided, towards healing, I started to really understand that the things that had happened to me had distorted my own ability to see who I was, had distorted my ability to connect with my value and with my purpose in this life. And we all have one. I don't believe that we're here by random chance. I believe that we're all meant to be here for a reason. And it is absolutely the path to ultimate joy and fulfillment is to connect with that reason.
When someone has gone through trauma, you brought up uh that survivor mode, and how getting through the day, they're just getting or using distractions work as a distraction, or it can be alcohol or whatever, and then trying to get on that healing path, there's that fear, oh, shame might come up, or all of my blunders in life, that's gonna rise up. But coming out of the survivor mode, how would you name it when someone has gone through the healing journey? Like, what's the name of that modality? Because we have the survivor mode, but what's the mode on the other side?
Oh, that's thriving. When we thrive,
Thriving.
I believe that we exist, survive, thrive. Existing is, I'm just not connected to anything. I'm just kind of floating in life. I'm not really sure where I'm going. I'm not really, I don't, you're kind of in an apathetic, sort of non-connected place. Surviving is when oftentimes you have really, the good news, bad news of being a high functioning person, like very intelligent, very capable, talented, is that you are really good at defending against um, all of the things that you need to work through. You're really good at staving off the inevitable, and you can probably keep it at bay for a long time, and you probably have lots of ways to do that. But these are people oftentimes who are very successful in life, who work really hard, who really try hard for their families, and who oftentimes can even be award winners in their fields, or really function at a high level. But it's like functioning as a giant head, and you're disconnected from your body, you're disconnected from your soul. And all of us, if we think about it, I think we can either, if we're being honest with ourselves, we can fess up to it, or we can think about people in our lives who are like this. All of us hang out and tend to hang out in one part of who we are, right? The truth is, we're all, mind, body, spirit, soul, all of us include, have all of that, right? All of us are emotional and physical. But those people who only hang out at the gym, who only work out and obsess about what they eat all day long. They don't really care about anything else. They're all about the food, they're all about the nutrition. Those people who always are on their computer and they can do work all day long. They don't really care about anything else. They don't really ever exercise. They don't have that many relationships, etc. And you have also those people who are super spiritual, who will go and meditate for hours at a time, and who maybe will be in an ashram on a hill, or they're super super spiritual in that way, and they don't really have anything else in their lives. I don't think it's healthy to hang out in any one part of your life, for me. And that's why I call this work integration work. Survival mode is always going to be a mode that we all have, because the nature of life is like that, right? There are seasons in life. Sometimes we go through very dark periods. I call them dark night, the dark night of the soul, where there maybe everything is kind of crashing in. Everything is, maybe you went through a divorce, your children won't talk to you, you're losing your house. I mean, all these extreme things happen at the same time. Then there are seasons where you might have, things are pretty good, but man, I've been out of work for 6 months, or there's one piece that really isn't falling into place. The nature of life, I mean, as long as we're human beings, we're going to have periods like that. The trick is to have a process to be able to understand yourself well and understand your tendencies well, and to have a path that you're on so that you're anchored in this life in something that's meaningful to you. Um, so that when those times do come, you don't switch off and go into survival mode. You can be aware of, whoops, okay, I need to get more balance in my life. Okay, I've been sleeping too much, or I've been working too much. I'm starting to try to escape. Let's look at what's going on for me emotionally. When you've done this work, you're not intimidated to call yourself out. You're not intimidated by sadness, or any one circumstance that you can't control, right? So it's not that the problems will go away. I'm not promising that. I mean, life is life. And I tell my clients, life is equal opportunity. You're going to get rain, you're going to get sun, you're going to get blessings, you're going to get trials. It's just part of the drama, right? It's part of what it means to be a human being. But you don't have to be helpless in any of it. And that's what this process is about. Whether you're wanting to do therapy or coaching, whether you're working with a healer, I mean, I think all of that is great. But hopefully, it's going to lead you to insight. It's going to lead you to a greater understanding of who you are deep down authentically, so that you're not wearing a mask, you're not playing a role, you're not trying to please somebody, you're not just following somebody because they have all the answers. The truth is, you have the answers. You need to tap into what you have, because every soul in this universe is absolutely unique. We're all a unique imprint. And for us not to honor that, for us not to really see what we have inside and allow it to unfold, that's the greatest loss, not just to yourself, but to others, because we all have something special to give to the world. We all have some special way to be in this world. And that means that, not just you'll benefit from it, but your family will benefit from it, your community. And as you start to heal and feel better about yourself, oftentimes what happens is people become channels or guides for how other people can heal from the same kind of trauma. I've worked with human trafficking survivors who are now looking at how they can help people heal. I have worked with other trauma survivors who have realized, wow, you know what? I want to do this kind of work. I didn't really see myself doing it, but I kind of feel like that's where I'm supposed to go. You start to connect with your intuition, and start to trust your path, rather than trying to control everything around you to make it fit into this hole that you find yourself in. Trying to pretend and be somebody else is exhausting. Trying to control whatever is out here, that's not going to work. But when we're not afraid to go within, we start living from the inside out. That's when you start to create the life that you want, rather than hide from life and hide from yourself. Yeah,
Well, thank you for all those words of wisdom. That was something that after this interview, I'm going to really be thinking a lot about that. And you've brought up the human trafficking. I'm aware that you have a project, you have a work that deals with this. Can you share with the audience a bit about this project that you're doing?
absolutely. I have a nonprofit called Project Satori. I set it up many years ago, but I did it alongside getting my doctorate and getting my experience and all of that. So it's been very slowly building. But I think that was by design. I gave me the opportunity to really understand what trafficking is about, what survivors go through. I did my doctoral research in Calcutta with sex trafficking survivors, and my research dealt with their stories, their experiences, and what they feel they need to start healing. because in the research, the thing that was missing were their voices. Their voices weren't in the research at all. So that is what I did. Um, Starting there, I established Project Satori. Over the course of, like I said, almost 17 years, I've been able to do a lot of public speaking and advocacy work. I've been able to raise money for survivors who need help with getting into therapy, getting into healing, getting into places that can help them heal. I've also done a lot of clinical work with human trafficking survivors for about 11 years. I've taken a break from doing that work now because I'm focused on writing a treatment protocol um, for human trafficking survivors that is based on my work, based on my experience, and also based on some collaborative work that I'm doing. And now I'm getting ready to do my next tier of research with survivors, which will be treatment research. So it's something I'm very passionate about. I think the thing about human trafficking is that it's so pervasive. It grows every year. Um, and the thing that broke my heart when I was researching it and just really blew my mind was that every single country in the world is involved. Not a single country is there where there isn't some aspect of trafficking playing out, whether the country is a portal country, a destination country, or a country through which trafficking survivors are moved, um, or an origin country where trafficking survivors are recruited. Every country is involved. So my passion and what I believe is my life's work, in addition to coaching and therapy, is to really try to do as much work as I can to help stop human trafficking and sexual slavery, because it is just horrific. The statistics are horrific, and they're growing all the time, and they happen in ways that you wouldn't believe. Trafficking is one of those things where it preys on the vulnerabilities of each system in each country, and it exploits our vulnerabilities. So, for example, the foster care system, the social services system in this country is overloaded. People have way too many caseloads. There has not been enough oversight in many cases. So traffickers can pose as foster parents, and they pocket the check from social services, close the doors, and then turn around and sell that kid into rings, to trafficking rings. I've worked with trafficking survivors from all different backgrounds, cultures, and also socioeconomic classes. It doesn't, I mean, in most countries and here in our country, it is always, the poorest and the most vulnerable populations that are preyed upon, because they're the easiest targets. But traffickers also work through, for example, sororities in colleges. They work through different kinds of websites, luring college students who need extra money, to get through and pay for classes and books. They are also, like I said, evident in the social services and foster care system. Um, and gangs now are into trafficking because you can sell, you can resell guns, you can only sell drugs once, but you can only make so much money from selling guns. You can make a lot of money from reselling human beings, and there is no end to how much you can resell them and where you can sell them. So, there's a whole business there that has been growing and prospering for many, many years now. So, um, and all of the old kind of stranger danger, watch out for strange men, and don't talk to strangers. All of that is still there, but now trafficking, being sold into trafficking rings is also an option for those same. It's not just about getting raped or getting molested. It's about now you can actually be sold into trafficking. Um, Also, when you have and I live in California. So in Los Angeles, everybody knows that Los Angeles is a huge destination point for people who want to make it in the acting business or modeling or whatever. So sometimes traffickers can pose as people who think that you're beautiful and, oh, you'd be a beautiful model, you'd be this, you'd be an amazing actress, let me help you with your headshots, or let me help you. So unfortunately, as I said, traffickers and trafficking rings have learned how to exploit the weaknesses in our society. So I'm very passionate about this work. I'm trying to get, full funding for my nonprofit so that I can really do this work globally, because there's a global vision here. So yeah, that's something that I'm also very active in, very working hard towards taking global. Yeah.
We have in our day and age, we have the internet, social media. So there's a lot of, I believe, awareness about sex trafficking. However, despite this awareness, would you say that human trafficking is slowing down, or is it continuing at the same rate or a higher rate?
Oh, it's growing. It's growing all the time. Um, because there are so many moving parts. Awareness is good, and certainly there are a lot of organizations doing a lot of good work. But one thing I'll tell you, it took me, when I did my research in Calcutta, it took me 4 years to set up that research, because there are also organizations that are posing as rescue organizations or as healing organizations, and really they're storefronts for traffickers. So, oftentimes high profile clients who might be actors or government officials, or, people who have high, like, very big reputations and are even celebrity, they want to get boys or girls or whatever, so they can pose as doing this good work. And then when the doors close, they get to, there's a child that's exploited in the process, or there's a child that's resold, or, um, there are so many children that are forced to work in brothels, in so many countries all over the world. So there are new, I mean, and that's the thing that makes it really difficult to prosecute traffickers, is that as trafficking victims are moved over national borders and regional borders, laws change, right?
Mhm.
So it's very difficult to prosecute traffickers. And what ends up happening is oftentimes the girls or boys that are rescued, that are staying in rescues, are trapped there. They become they can become prisons for them, because traffickers will pay lots of money to bribe people, to bribe judges, even to, they make themselves very uh, present around the periphery of these girls, these children's lives, um, even at rescue compounds. So they're losing money when they lose girls, boys. This is their revenue, right? So they don't easily just go away and let go. On average, trafficking survivors are rescued anywhere between 5 and 7 times before they actually don't get re-trafficked, and before it actually sticks, because there's a lot of mental illness, psychological trauma, um, fragmentation. Um, like, as I said earlier, we will create narratives to align with situations for our survival. So sometimes the trafficking victims are so terrified of being away from their traffickers, they try to get back to their traffickers, because they've been either brainwashed or broken, or oftentimes their families are threatened. They're told, we're going to kill your family if you don't do this, or, there's so many different, the weight of so many things they're living under, right? So a lot of moving parts. So it gets worse every year. It's a huge multi-billion-dollar industry worldwide. Um, and so many people from so many walks of life are involved. People that you should be able to trust. I mean, I've seen it where, there are corrupt police officers who are involved. There are corrupt border officials who are involved. They're corrupt, government officials. So for as many good people as there are out there doing this work who really want to see survivors be rescued and heal and move forward, um, there's just not the infrastructure oftentimes in many countries because, as I said, it's the most impoverished communities that are hit the hardest. And when you're, when your family has absolutely no money and many mouths to feed, and you're told a story that sounds too good to be true, you are going to want to believe that for everything you're worth
Mhm.
because anything's got to be better than the life you're living, right?
You mentioned earlier that, there's a lot of research out there, but one thing that was missing was the voices of those who are involved in this, the victims. Could you share a bit of what these voices have said to you, if that's allowed?
Well, of course, in my work, I can't ever reveal my sources. There has to be anonymity, but I can certainly share parts of their stories. I think I look at doing work with human trafficking survivors in part as a retranslation from object to subject, right? I
Okay.
think that trafficking dehumanizes the victim. And I mean, when you're tortured and you're psychologically broken and you are living in fear all the time, and you're made to do work that is horrific. I mean, we're talking about young girls that are forced to sleep with customers, um, you know, 6 to 8 hours a day, just in exchange for a small cot and food. But they're indentured slaves on oftentimes, which means that even the food they get, the cut they get, whatever, if they're allowed to have toothpaste or brushes or combs or whatever, it's considered those are things that they have to pay off. So they're told, oh, yeah, you'll be able to leave when you pay off your debt, but they're always going to be in debt because you need food and water to survive, right? But that's what they're paying off. So it's very twisted and dark, and it's so I learned, so basically my research was set up to give survivors a space in which they could tell their own story, and they had a chance to identify for themselves what could be helpful. What do they want to do with their lives? What help would really feel good for them to have in their lives? What support would feel good for them to have in their lives? So I interviewed these different young ladies, most of them from India, some from Nepal, some from Bangladesh, um, and they were allowed. I spent about a month and a half getting to know them, staying at the compound, sharing meals with them, really trying to build trust, build rapport. I had a language translator with me. I speak Tamil. My family is from South India, but I'm in Calcutta. That's in Bengal, which is in East India, which Bengali is a different language. I'm learning Hindi. I want to learn Hindi well, because that's going to be, it's the most popular language in India, and most people know how to speak Hindi. So that's part of what I need to do in furthering my work. Um, but in building rapport with them, building trust with them, um, I also invited them to be part of my research. Um, and I also just gave them the space and the freedom to share whatever they wanted to share. There was one young woman who wanted to be part of the research, um, but it was interesting. To every question I asked, she said, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to say anything. And when I asked her, the last thing I asked them, well, the two last questions I had was, one was, um, well, oftentimes trafficking survivors are named by their madam or by their trafficker, and they're trafficked as young as 5, 6 years old. So a lot of the time, they can't read or write, and some of them can't even remember what their name, was. There's so much trauma, there's so much, breaking. Um, So they're renamed. And so one of the things I asked them was, if you could name anything, if you could pick a name for yourself, what would it be? You could name yourself, what would it be? And I'll go by that name for you in this research. The girl who refused to answer any questions, she said, I want to be, um, I want to have the name, the girl with no name. That was her choice of a name. So to me, it was powerful to have her as part of the research, because oftentimes we judge what is a good interview or a successful interview based on the amount of content we get, or um, what is revealed um, through what a person says. But so much is revealed in what a person doesn't say, and also in what a person chooses. And these girls don't have, many of them don't know what it's like to have choices. Many of them don't know what it's like to have any kind of power or agency in their lives. So the very fact that you could answer questions to an authority or to a perceived authority and say, no, you don't get to know my story. No, I'm not going to tell you. That's power. That's resilience. That's the choice she gets to make. And so and then on the other side of it, I had young women who were very detailed and explained about some of the horrific things that happened to them, you know, being tortured, watching their friends be tortured and die, um, watching babies get killed. There was a trafficker. One of the worst stories I'd heard was of a young woman. She was a favorite of her trafficker. She brought in a lot of money. She was very popular with customers. And she was the more mature of the girls. She actually helped take care of some of the younger girls. And she was somebody that everybody leaned on. And she was trying to help this one young girl who was maybe 10 or 11, who had been tortured so much, and she was so depressed, and she didn't have any way to cope with any of the things that she was having to deal with day to day. um, she found her uh, hanging and dead in a bathroom one day, and she carried the grief and the guilt of not being able to save her. She kind of, that was one of the things that she bore as her fault. She saw her as her guardian. Um, when one of the girls got angry and spoke up against her trafficker, the trafficker called all of the girls into the room and for a whole day made them watch what would happen if any of them defied him again. He had a wife and 4 daughters who lived in the main house, and the girls were living in the back house. And this one girl with whom that I interviewed, she said that that day, that her daughter had just, or the trafficker's wife had just given birth to another child, another girl. The trafficker was infuriated. He didn't want any girls, he wanted boys. But here it was, he had another daughter. That day, when he was showing girls what would happen to them if they defied him, he took his own daughter, his infant daughter, and slit her throat in front of them and said, "This is what's going to happen to you. This is my own daughter. You don't think I'll do worse to you, right?" These are the kinds of conditions that they live under. They're oftentimes beaten with metal rods. They're burned. They're starved. They're gang raped. That's a regular way in which trafficking survivors are broken. Um, if you take the most horrific thing that you can do to a human being, um, and I've done this. I mean, I've gone through so many phases of my own growth and understanding and coping as I've done this work. Um, if I were to sit down and try to come up with the most evil things I could do to a human being, I don't think they would come close to what these girls have gone through, have endured, and continue to endure all over the world. Yeah.
And thank you for sharing. It's a reality that we don't want. We wish it wasn't a reality, but it is. And despite this darkness, this evil which exists, we have people in the world like you who are out there, uh, helping in your own way to lift these victims up. And I wanted to go back just for a second, and the name is Project Satori. What is the meaning of Project Satori, and how did you, like, what's the definition, and how does it fit with the work that you do?
Yeah, well, Satori, it actually is a term that comes from Buddhism, and it's about bringing light into darkness. That's the basic meaning of it. And so that's what I believe. I believe we are our brother's keeper. I believe that we should be looking out for each other. I believe we're all connected. And I think that we all have a light that we can bring to darkness. We all have the ability to see ourselves differently, to hold ourselves differently, and to orient ourselves to the world in a way that we can bring light. And we live in very dark times right now in many ways. I mean, whether we look at politics, whether we look at, all of the different abuses that people endure all over the world, whether we look at, sometimes just, how much poverty there is in the world, how much hunger there is in the world, how much violence, the wars that people are engaged in. There's a lot of darkness, a lot of dark things that are happening. But, we all have the capacity for light. And those who have gone through trauma, contrary to how they may feel about themselves, they have the capacity for even more light, in my opinion.
And now to wrap things up, can you, I mean, you have your work over in California, and are you open to helping new clients, or are you taking a break at the moment?
So right now, like I said, I'm a therapist and a coach. I mean, I can take on coaching clients, and I have openings to take on coaching clients from anywhere in the world. So anywhere you live, if you want to do coaching with me, we can do that. We can do that online, and I can absolutely talk to you about that. Um, my you can find my contact email, my information on my website. My practice website is www.theconscious-life.com. If you go onto that website, you can email me, you can leave me your contact information, and I will get back to you. Um, Therapy wise, if you live in California, I can potentially see you as a client. I am taking a break from, I'm focusing on coaching because coaching I can do globally, and I'm about to embark on research. So that's going to have me traveling for a while. But I do have staff who are excellent, who can see therapy clients who need to be seen if you want to work through trauma. Contact me through the website, and I can put you in touch with my staff, and they're very, very good. I personally oversee cases as well because it's my practice. So I will also have I'll also have my eyes on your case. Um, and yeah, if you want to find out more about the other things that I'm doing, I'm launching a YouTube channel called The Conscious Psychologist. I'm also going to be doing some, I also write articles for a nationally syndicated podcast called The Price of Business Show. I'm doing a series right now on living authentically and consciously. I do interviews with different people. I'll be posting those on my channels as well. So there's lots of different ways in which you can connect if you're interested. Yeah.
And I'll be leaving all those links in the show notes. So for the audience, uh, just find it there. I'll leave it there for you, so it'll be easy.
Mhm.
And again, thank you so much for being here today. Any last words you'd like to share? Words of hope to the audience?
Oh, well, it's my pleasure to be here, and I'm so happy that we connected because it's exciting to see that there is a show like this that's so focused on healing. I think that's great. Um, to anyone out there who's watching and who's hurting right now, understand that you are bigger than the pain you're experiencing. You're an extraordinary human being, and your soul is powerful, whether you know it or not. And whether you believe me or not, that's okay. If you just take one step forward, um, you'll be moving forward towards a new way of seeing yourself and seeing your world. You can have the life that you want. It just means that you've got to take it one step at a time and get some help. Get some help so that you can heal and so that you can start to see yourself and see your life differently.
Thank you.